Okay, so today's guest is Daryl Morgan. Daryl is the founder and owner of Minko's Macs.
Okay.
Had a pretty difficult upbringing with regards to where he's from and some of the pursuits that he followed at that time, including drug dealing. Managed to carve a place for himself and is now a successful businessman. So would you like to hear some more?
Yeah, man.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Daryl, welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you guys. So I'm the founder of Minko's Macs.
Yeah.
Founded it by accident.
What is Minko's Macs? What is it?
Minko's Macs is basically an Apple IT service that specializes in Apple hardware systems.
Okay.
And Apple software system, IT consultancy. So what I actually do is go into creative environments. People might tell me their needs, and then I may build something to match the needs of what that person requires in the sense of a computer
Do you
or
have
an
that
organization.
official partnership with Apple as a recognised partner?
I don't actually have the partnership. I could have had it a few years ago, but there's a few rules to it. So one, you have to use something like 90% of their parts, which basically messed up my profit margins.
Mm-hmm.
Two, they give you their accountant.
So operating in that
Yeah.
space, actually, in some aspects, almost in opposition, is tough enough to carve a place for yourself anyway.
I didn't realise you had to use their accountants as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very controlling
for
as it
brand
is
for
anyway.
branding, you said it like would have hindered your profit margins.
Yeah.
But for branding, wouldn't that have made up for it if you were official partner
More
of
volume.
Apple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly at the time when it actually came about, I personally didn't feel that we were sort of ready for it.
Okay.
Like, so they basically take over your business and then you would be given sort of like a margin.
Okay.
So
Would you have felt like a bit like a sellout to your own hard work and your own brand?
I would have felt like my margins would have decreased. My advertising might have went up.
Yeah.
The reputation of what, people, would
Perceived your company.
perceive
Yeah.
would look a bit better.
Yeah.
But money-wise, I wasn't
no benefit to
convinced.
Yeah. Do you think a
don't
lot
feel-
of people prefer things that look good on the surface, less than actually behind the scenes of how much money are you making? Or I know that's like quite big in the music industry or with business,
Yes,
that
yeah.
it looks like you've got this massive deal with, I don't know, Sony
Some advance or something, yeah.
Warner.
Yeah.
But
You're
when you
making no
hash
money
it,
at
exactly,
all.
when you hash it
You're
down,
paying for the privilege. of it.
Yeah.
you're not really making any money or ownership of your thing.
Yeah, so, for me, starting the business in the way that I sort of grew up was sort of like no control. So I wasn't boxed in. So whenever something comes around that makes me feel like you have to do this or you have to do that, I'll just say no.
So don't give you an
actively
ultimatum. Never give you an ultimatum.
Yeah,
yes?
yeah.
So do you have an issue with like authority then?
Kind of, I would say, in a sense of like, maybe not authority, because in some sense, some people get the lines blurred between what is the law and like what is advisory. So I have no problem obeying the law, but in a sense of somebody coming around and giving me procedures and policies that they make up, for me, it just doesn't fit in with who I am.
See, that's really interesting because given your background and context,
Yeah.
there's some quite clear lines that you obviously did cross
Yeah,
around the law.
Yeah.
How did you go from
Yeah.
that position
Yeah.
to running a business? Take us
Yeah.
back.
It's a bit of a tricky one. So I'll take you right back so
Yeah.
you can sort of understand the logistics of
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
We like the juicy bit,
And
innit?
stories can get a bit
Yeah, of
long.
course.
Yeah.
And you can ask questions as you want to ask questions. So basically,
Thanks for that. Cheers.
Imagine.
Come to
Is
the show.
that advisory? Is that your advisory? Yeah.
It's
He's
a long-
advising us.
it's a long story.
Go on, we've got time.
So basically, I'll go back before my birth, so
Yeah.
you can kind of get the family and
Okay. Oh, we're going right back.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
So then it will sort of all make sense.
Cool.
So then so originally my nan, she was born in St. Vincent.
Okay.
So she came from middle class St. Vincent background.
Yep.
My granddad, however, who she got married to, he was born in Trinidad.
Okay.
He was a boxer.
Yep.
So he had a fight in Trinidad. He accidentally killed the person.
Oh wow.
So then a lot of people ended up looking for him. So he fled to St. Vincent.
And that's where he met you.
And that's where he met my grandma.
Okay.
So, but when he met my grandma, he was some years older than her.
Yep.
And she was like in a really good school, like one of the best schools on the island, etc. People in St. Vincent are slightly different from the rest of the Caribbean.
Yes.
They're very formal, etc. So her family, they didn't agree with their relationship because he was a bricklayer.
Yeah.
And obviously he wasn't stable.
Seen as working class.
Yeah.
To them.
Yeah, to them, he was working class.
Is the class system in the Caribbean, because you made it quite plain that, you know, your nan was middle class in the Caribbean and your granddad was working class.
Yeah.
Is that reflective of the same class system as here?
It is, but you just don't have race.
Oh.
So obviously when there isn't a racial barrier,
Classism versus
classism v
Class
racism.
system
Okay.
in other.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting, yeah.
So anyway, so they decided to leave because they never had the backing of their family. So they left, they came to the UK. However, my granddad, being what he was like, he already had a number of children that obviously I don't think she was aware of. And then when they got here, then they had a few kids.
Yep.
They had 3 children, my mum being one of them. Then basically he started having an affair or sleeping with the babysitter.
Oi.
Oh.
Yeah, so the babysitter.
Dramas. This is dynasty.
So this is
you don't even
is-
know what dynasty is, do you?
Yeah. So
Shush.
so this is so it will start to make sense.
Yeah.
So as he's sleeping with the babysitter is actually pregnant, but the baby's not his.
Okay.
So, but he's taken the baby on as his, but this is another child that we'll go on to later. So basically, what's then happened from there is she's realized, you know, that he's sleeping, having an affair with the babysitter in the same house. So she's developed mental issues.
Okay.
So she became schizophrenic, etc., etc. So what he would do, he would lock her in the house to keep her inside because he wouldn't know how to deal with her mentally.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So, however, my mum being her only daughter, then had to take her out of that house and raise her. Well, not raise her,
Look
but
after
look
her.
after her.
Yeah. And this,
So-
your mum had to do this.
Yeah.
What,
So my mum
your-
done that her whole life.
So your mum watched your dad
Yeah.
locking
Her mum.
her mum
Yeah.
in the house
Yeah.
and then took the mum out of the house,
Yeah.
away from your dad,
Yeah.
to look after her.
Yeah.
Because she saw that that was just making things worse.
It was making things worse.
And in
yeah.
terms of the health system then,
Yeah. Well, it was terrible.
he didn't know
So-
who to turn to or...
He would never. So sometimes in Caribbean culture, especially with men and mental health. So even if you're from Jamaica or you're from the Caribbean, you'll know that if there's somebody with a mental health issue, it isn't always dealt with in a savoury way.
No.
So I have a friend. He was mentally ill in Jamaica. They chopped him up and put him in a bin.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you know, these are the type of things that Caribbean culture, you know,
And then
tends to deal with.
then how your mum had to deal with that,
Yeah.
then obviously must have affected her.
Yeah, exactly. So my mum basically looking after my nan or being her full-time carer. So for me, when I was born, my entire life, she's been mentally ill.
Yeah.
So I've never seen
Your mum's been mentally ill.
my nan.
Your
Nan,
nan,
nan.
sorry, yeah.
So I've never seen a normal side of her. So I hear stories,
Yeah,
you know, that she was this top grade student.
yeah.
She was a teacher.
But that was very
etc.
different from the reality you were
Yeah.
seeing.
But it was
But how
different
that
from the reality.
relationship,
Yeah.
the breakdown
Yeah.
of that relationship.
So that's
with
quite
her,
interesting.
And then in turn, obviously how your mum has been, and
Yeah.
then in turn you.
So then how was your
exactly.
mum with you, raising you, knowing how mental health or
Yeah.
issues or
Yeah.
unstable environment can have an effect?
Yeah.
Did she then try to provide more of a stable environment for you with your father?
So basically, this is where my dad was fortunate. So my dad came from a very good family. However, he was the only male, so he was surrounded by a lot of females. However, they all had qualifications. They all had a very good job, etc.
Middle class again.
Middle class again. But then he grew up in Tottenham, so he was on like Broadwater
What's
Farm.
that meant to mean? What's wrong with Tottenham?
No, nothing's wrong with Tottenham.
Okay,
yeah,
just,
but
just
he,
checking.
he was.
Oh, you know how to stay in it.
Just checking.
You know how to stay.
Lovely little bit.
but so he lived on a road called Chester Road.
Okay,
in
I know
Tottenham.
Chester. I used to live there. Yes, very nice little road.
Yeah, so they lived on
good,
that
yeah.
road. So, but Broadwater Farm is like,
Not
Behind
yet,
it.
Behind it.
Yeah.
so all of his friends
We're from,
were
the
from
road.
Broadwater
Yeah.
Farm.
State, yeah.
So,
So do you think proximity, because you said that your father came from a middle class background,
Yeah.
however, he lived in Tottenham.
Yeah.
So do you think proximity has then eroded him being middle class?
I think it would be a more of who he identified with.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
class is not about
Yeah.
postcodes, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
more
Yeah.
so qualifications, which he
Yeah.
still had, and
Yeah,
then
okay.
what work you do and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. So he would identify with the other black men in the area, and my granddad, his dad, he was really fair. So he was like almost as light as you. So when a lot of them travelled from the Caribbean, he would rent the houses
Yeah,
for them because he was really light,
yeah.
and then he would give everybody else in the
Everyone else.
family.
Because that was a big
houses
thing.
that-
You couldn't
Yeah.
You
get
were dark
property.
skinned, you couldn't get a...
Yeah, you couldn't
Everyone
get property,
makes
yeah.
a joke, no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. That was the
Yeah.
big thing for around property. You couldn't do it.
When you look at it on the terms that your dad, albeit coming from a middle class background,
Yeah,
had fallen in with the wrong crowd,
yeah,
which is easy done in close proximity to, quite a notorious estate. And then your mum is completely
Overwhelmed. really.
overwhelmed and
Yeah, and
obviously
responsible.
and responsible
Yeah.
and doing her best to look after her
her
own mother.
mum, yeah.
And then where does that leave you in the middle? That
Exactly. So when it was things like that, so my mum, she would, to get away from things, she would have a drink. So she became an alcoholic.
And how
So-
old were you then?
So I think when I kind of realised that my mum was an alcoholic, I was probably about 5 or 6. But the house wasn't like, there wasn't no order.
Yeah.
So it's like, I lived in a place called Boundary Estate in Walthamstow. That's where we started off. And basically it was like, do what you want. So whether it be out with other kids whose parents weren't there, or out with kids from
And
care
how old?
homes
From
and-
like 6,
from
7?
probably about 4 or 5 years old.
And you were out, just out.
Just out.
And your mum, while you were out, would be at home drunk.
Yeah, she'd be at home having a drink or
Wait, 4 years old?
yeah, about that.
That's
yeah.
incredibly young, though.
yeah, about that. Seriously, yeah.
So when you were at, fast forward to secondary school,
Yeah.
did you not think to yourself, my dad's in and out of prison. I
Yeah.
don't want to be like my dad.
Yeah.
My mum is an alcoholic. I don't want to
Yeah.
be like my mum.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed with mental health,
Yeah.
so on and so forth.
Yeah.
This is my chance to be like the better side of my family,
Yeah.
educated, qualified,
Yeah.
whether it be uni or opening a business. Did that ever go through your mind?
It kind of did, but not really, because you're more than likely gonna take to what you can see.
Yeah.
So the older men that I saw, or the other black men that I saw, all they done was sell drugs. Even though it sounds like a negative situation, it actually brought something into my mum's house, even though it came with a lot of trouble that we'll get into, but it brought something into my mum's house that wasn't there before, even if it be food in the fridge.
Yeah.
Or
So it was positive.
To you, that was your
Well,
positivity.
You ate in it. You ate.
You have to eat.
You have to eat. You have
Yeah,
to eat. So
yeah.
let's call it like a spade. Because
yeah,
to be
yeah.
clear, we would have all grown up amongst people
Yeah.
who, on the face of it, were like just like us. But they're going home to what you're explaining is
Yeah.
chaotic.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But
yeah,
essentially, as long as you can eat food and go to
that's a
school,
good day.
Yeah.
no one
Yeah,
knows any
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Success.
That's how you make it, and that's the
Yeah.
benchmark. I think that people don't often understand that, particularly people who aren't from the estates. They don't understand how chaotic people's lives actually are.
And what is a positive
Yeah,
to
and then
them?
you're expecting a child to come to school and then just put all the energy into learning about the French
wasn't gonna
Revolution.
happen.
It wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen.
It
But
wasn't gonna
happen,
that
yeah.
didn't happen for you, though, did
No,
it?
it
I'm
wasn't.
trying to
It
eat
wasn't.
today,
It wasn't.
forget the
It
French
wasn't like
Revolution.
So you have to grow up quickly.
Yeah.
You know. And
When
then-
did you realise there's no food and there's no money in this house? Because I think as a
It's on me.
child, you think everything's okay when you can go out and play, and you might have a bit of toast in the morning. It's not. When did it dawn on you? My setup is lacking. There's no money. I need to try and get some
when
money.
I was probably about 12. So probably about 12 years old. And then what you do in a situation, or what some children would do in a situation like that, is they'll compare their own households
Yes.
to their friend's
Yes.
household.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I go to my friend's house, I open the fridge,
Full.
it's loads of stuff in there. So I would go around one of my friends' houses every Friday and Saturday. His mum had simple things like Jaffa cakes.
It's like, raw.
Yeah, do you know
Heaven,
what I mean?
But it's big thing.
Yeah,
It's a
so
big
so
thing.
this is what I mean. Her fridge was always full. So it was sort of like, and then you compare it to your own
And
situation.
you're like, I don't have nothing.
And then you realize we've been living off of like egg sandwiches for like the past 5 years. Do you know what I mean? So
This
then
is
you,
a story though that
Yeah.
particularly at this moment in time, when we see how the pandemic has meant that people are stuck in their houses for 4 or 5 months, and you're looking at the stories coming out from school children that actually their one good meal a day
Is
Yeah.
at school.
Yeah, that was
But
me.
it's not like this
Yeah.
is a, could
Yeah.
this should be not even 1 in a million. This should be every child should have the ability to go to the fridge and have something to eat. But we're seeing it. It's not an outlier. This isn't an unusual story, even at this particular
No,
time.
it
And
wasn't
we're 20
unusual.
years on now.
Yeah,
But is that because your mum, and correct me if I'm wrong at any
Mm.
point, but is that because your mum mismanaged her finances or spent it on alcohol as to why you didn't have food in the fridge?
My mum wouldn't have money. So like obviously
Did she not work or on benefits? Or?
she was on benefits. So even if you're on benefits and then you bear in mind her mum's there, she's got a habit. I mean, being an alcoholic and drinking a bottle of wine every night, it's a cheap habit. It's like £5 a day.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to live off of maybe like 60, 70 £70 a week.
It's an expensive
Big
habit.
percentage.
That could have been a chicken and egg sandwich instead of an egg sandwich. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Do you
But
know what I mean? So,
I suppose I don't. I'm sitting here and looking at you as a successful business owner, and just my mind is spurring around. How did you make that transition? What was the movement from
it's
really chaotic space?
It's kind of weird. So it's sort of like so obviously the drugs. So for me, obviously I saw a lot of the older guys who I grew up with. They would have things that I would want. So they might have an Avex jacket. They might have.
I remember the
do you know what I
boy.
mean?
Avex and Pradas.
Yeah, Avex. They have Pradas. They have a little chaps on their thing, and so obviously for me, that's what I would aspire to.
So you gravitate towards that.
So I gravitated towards that because that's all I could see. So in a sense of, from maybe like 12 years old, somebody was like, you can make a bit of money doing this.
Who was that person? As in, not their name.
I'm about to say.
No, not that person. But when I mean who's that, was that
person
an
was slightly
older
older than me,
person in your own estate?
Yeah, basically.
So would you say, to quickly deviate, would you say that a lot of the young people or people in general that take their first steps into selling drugs is because they've been brought in quite easily by someone older?
Kind of. So what I actually done before that, we actually used to run into shops, and because I was small, I'd jump over the till.
Yeah.
Someone else would hold the guy, and I'd take the money out the till. But that was before like CCTV.
Yeah.
Once that came in, you kind of realised that it's a lot of effort and
Energy. It's
It's a lot of
tiring.
energy. It's a lot of time consuming. There's a lot of police involved.
Yeah.
So then it was sort of like, all right, drugs. So like what you were saying, it's a person's just gonna want it.
Yeah.
A person's gonna want to do it. Like if you can't see, one, the repercussions of it,
Yeah.
two, the consequences,
Yeah.
three, it's like everybody makes it look easier than it actually is. And
And I suppose there's not a lot of other alternative options.
and there
open
wasn't
to
any
you.
wasn't any other alternatives,
That's
to
your
be
choice.
honest.
So
Yeah.
you started juggling, yeah?
Yeah.
Was that successful?
Yeah. So yeah, it was. But doing that, getting onto the business, I learned lots of transferable skills, which I didn't realize. So I'm not promoting drug dealing.
No,
I'm not advising anyone to do it.
Yeah.
It's life.
And obviously the consequences that came with it for me were drastic, but at the same time, you learn transferable skills. It makes you very aware. It makes you learn how to read people. I would never write things down. I'd have everything in my head. So I'd know 20 people owe me money. I'd know all their numbers off the top of my head. I'd know every car registration number that was on my road, that was meant to be on my road, who was about, etc. I'd sell drugs from maybe like 7:30 in the morning to about 2 a.m.
What does that do for your social life though? Because I know when I speak to some girls who they like the lifestyle, so they may be doing positive things in their life, but they're gravitating towards guys who do what you're saying. But when they get into those relationships, it's very stressful. Yeah, the Louis bags may come, the Chanels, all the rest of it, the holidays, but their man's in and out of the house, or their man hasn't turned up tonight. Has the police got him? So how did that affect your social life?
It was exactly what you said. So one of my partners at the time, she actually got kidnapped.
Wow.
Because
Yeah.
of you.
Jeez.
Yeah. So this is the type of stuff that was happening.
So then why did you stop? When did you stop and why did you stop there?
So I just started to realize all of the complications that came with it. So whether it be friends trying to steal something that belongs to you, so you got a friend in your house, he's obviously the same type of friend. So, but something might not be happening for him. He hasn't got no money. He might see that he's stolen it. And then I had my cousin. My cousin sent a few people into my house. They tied my mum up as well, tied my little brother up for money. So, and then I had 2 friends that were murdered.
Wow.
So
And you thought, this is it, I've had enough.
That's tipping point.
yeah, I was kind of, well, that actually wasn't what made me stop, but I just kind of, when that happened, I moved out to Essex. And then I was selling drugs in Essex in nightclubs. So, but because I was the black guy, people would come and ask me for drugs, like, have you got drugs? But then I'd have white guys like in that corner,
your runners.
and that corner, and you'd go and meet them.
Do you not take offence, like, to even though you
Why
were
would you
doing
take
it,
offence to it?
even though you were doing it, but the assumption, why do you automatically think it's me? I've got 4 white guys selling
Why are
drugs
you
too.
surprised by that? Why
Yeah.
are either you surprised by that? The
No,
reality is that
not
the
surprised.
stereotypes are obvious.
No, but
Yeah.
but it's the acceptance of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
come on, listen. I walk around. I will be in a big suit, and I'll go into a shop, and I know the security guard is looking at me in a certain different way.
Yeah.
I'll go into an office where I'm the only black person, and people make assumptions that I'm a
Yeah.
T-boy or something.
Yeah.
So do you think
That's
that?
It still happens.
So
doesn't
did
it?
you?
happens
Okay,
now.
so if there is that stereotype, did you feel responsible for then reinforcing that stereotype? Because it's like
That's a good question. Yeah.
a lot of the
You
time.
know this stereotype
as a
because
black man,
you know
you
your
don't
dad
wanna
was
be-
in the game,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Did you feel
So
like
you can't be angry at a policeman or whoever for saying, "Oh, I bet he's a drug dealer." Yeah,
Yeah.
you are.
You are.
And that's
Yeah,
how
yeah,
you're
yeah.
successful.
Yeah. So and the police knew.
I find it unusual that you've gone then from that to then IT because again,
Yeah, how does
this
that
this
happen?
may be a stereotype,
How does
but
that happen,
we
bro?
have to be frank.
Yeah.
juggling bags of weed
Yeah,
to
yeah.
selling Max
Traditions.
is a big
But do you know
thing.
what? Stereotype sometimes is a thing. It's real, some of them. And I know around like my early 20s,
Yeah.
if a guy wanted to transition from road, he would open a barber shop or he'd
Yeah,
open
yeah.
a restaurant or he'd
Something
open
cash.
yeah, something that's quite so
Yeah.
IT actually reconditioning and making computers.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Did you go to uni for it or?
I didn't at the time. So when I was growing up, a lot of the guys who were doing music at the time, so I had 2 friends in particular. One group of friends was the Morphi crew. They were big at the time. And another friend was Jammer.
Yeah.
So he was quite influential at the time. And obviously I had money. So I had cash. So I would go into like their studios and I'd be like, let me put this in the shop. So I would use the cash to buy records, drive the records around London, put them in the shops, and then get checks back.
Oh, so you did go the
clean the
music
money.
route first?
Yeah. So to clean my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so you wasn't when you did the record
We're
store.
trying to be no DJ.
You wasn't you wasn't really thinking I really need to leave the roads now. It was more I need to try and make it
need to
look like
legitimise
I'm
my
doing
money.
I need to legitimize my money because the police had a lot of intelligence on what was happening. They were constantly raiding.
How did you realise they had
Intelligence. They were
Yeah.
trying to frame me. So there would be times when they'd stop me and there wasn't nothing, and then they'd just like chuck a like slab of weed on my lap and be like, yeah, that's his.
Well,
Come
what
on,
would
arrest
you
him.
do? What would
I'd be going mad. So, and I'm lucky that a lot of the time when
they would have weed in their own car
Yeah.
and put it on your lap?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So they would be doing, there'd be worse things than that happening.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So whether it be them taking money, sometimes they'll take money.
And
One of my friends,
disappear.
they actually drove off in his car. So he had a brand new Audi. They knew
So
what
do
we
you
was doing.
think also that has an effect when the police try to set you up? A lot of people think, well, you're trying to set us up anyway, so we may as well do it.
Yeah, so it was sort of like that. But I had issues with the police growing up my whole life. So when I was 12, the police, my sister was on her way back from the carnival. She was a couple of years older than me. And the police saw us out. We was playing about with a telephone box. They've come out of the car, they were drunk, and they've literally just started battering us. So had the doctors come into the police station after and whatnot. So my relationship with the police was, it was never actually trusted. that situation, tried to take it to court, and they got something called a yellow card, which was what they
What,
would
the
give.
police?
Yeah, so the police officers that were involved, they were actually drunk at the time. And not only were they drunk at the time, I'm talking bus lit, bus nose. I was like really young. My sister was 14, I was 12, and my little cousin, he was there as well. He was 11. So
notwithstanding, so it's disgusting, obviously.
yeah,
Fast forward when you are actually an active drug dealer.
yeah,
There could be a school of thought that says the police are coming in and they're trying to frame you.
Yeah.
They know that you're a drug dealer.
yeah.
But there will be a portion of society that's saying, well, he's a criminal anyway.
Anyway, yeah. And that's what they would say. So any incidents at my house, like let's say when my mum was tied up, there was a little thing outside after. So I actually had a firearm in my house at the time. So as they were leaving, I've actually ran outside. There was a few shots fired, and then somebody called the police. So when the police actually came, it was sort of like, he's a drug dealer anyway. So my mum's there crying.
Yeah,
And they didn't care.
doesn't take away
But
from
they
So
were
your
like,
life
he's a drug dealer.
wasn't
Yeah.
valuable like a law-abiding citizen.
Yeah. So then they were like, let's leave it.
So do you think that if someone is partial to that lifestyle and someone isn't, that the treatment of the police should be exactly the same?
I believe that obviously the police. Now this is where I said earlier that I wouldn't accept a contract, and I wouldn't accept procedures and policies. They have. So when you've signed something that basically says that your job is to protect and serve,
It should be for everyone.
it should be for everyone until, if it goes to the court, then the court decides what justice that
I hear that.
Yeah.
But if you're playing both sides of a line, you can't be, you got to look after me, bruv, and at the same time, I'm going to do something as much as I can to get around you.
Yeah.
But if
and make money illegally.
I would never expect them to look after me, but when it was like the situation with my mum.
But your mum knew that you were selling drugs, so she's complicit.
You're in the house. You're doing it from the yard.
If it wasn't for your mum, I would have get caught a long
this
time.
framework.
So she assisted you with selling drugs.
But that's because I've told you that. So that's why you know that.
Yeah.
So the police knowing that at the time.
They just get a phone call and stand around and fix it.
They didn't know that at the time. And it doesn't, like, you're on paid time anyway. So, and you're a servant of the Crown. Yeah. So this is your job. So if I have a job to do and I attend somewhere, and even if I know, all right, this child or this young man is a drug dealer, I'm not gonna subject his little brother, his mum and his sister to the same
treatment.
Yeah.
I think the point of this is your ascent, is how you've gone out from that. And I think the sensation of it is really interesting, but I'm much more interested in how you've created a business. But do you not understand how, stand in the shoes of a police officer, imagine you were a police officer, as hard as that may be, right?
Yeah.
You know that you're going to go to Tony's yard.
Yeah.
Tony's been juggling and trying to get round us for years. We know he's doing the thing, but we can't prove it. And now Tony's phoning me to fix up and come and look after his mum. Are you going to have the same respect for somebody like Lynn, who's law-abiding
Because they're still
citizen?
human. Police are still human.
Do you know what I mean? Law-abiding citizen, never done anything wrong.
Yeah.
Where am I going to put more of my energy? Can you understand how that might be the case?
Because your issue.
Let him answer the question.
No,
Let him answer the question.
I understand it. I understand it. But if my contract says
Forget the
otherwise-
contract. You can't fall back on the contract.
I mean,
no, you can't fall back on the contract. You're standing in their shoes. You're standing in their shoes. Yeah. And you've got a phone call. Two people have made a phone call.
Yeah.
I know Tony's a dodgy.
I didn't call them. My mum didn't call them. The neighbour called
The
them.
neighbour called them.
And
they said Tony's yard.
It's always
We
hot.
know Tony's yard.
It's always
Tony's at the
popping
yard
up.
and he's doing something. And you know what? I've got Lynn's yard. She's a law-abiding citizen. I'm going to do the minimum I can for Tony and the maximum I can. Can you understand how that would be the case?
I understand, but then don't turn up.
My taxes is paying for the police officer to be able to go to work, though.
But then don't. But my sister was paying taxes. So, but what then means that,
Well, come out the yard then, Tony.
Yeah, I did. That's what I actually done after. You know.
Okay, all right. So we boxed that now. We boxed that.
So you got a music shop now.
So
how did you create this business?
So going back to the business aspect, it was I used the money to do what I done within music.
Yep.
And then basically there was a guy, and unfortunately this is back to drug. He was actually a drug addict, and he had a debt that somebody was looking for him, chasing him for. So he owned like, I think he owed about 50 grand. It was a big amount of money. But he had like a really large studio. And he was like, look, I want to go to Germany. I need out. Give me 20 grand now and take the place. So obviously I was like, I didn't know what anything done. I just saw like loads of flashing lights
and everything. It looked
and
good.
everything. And then obviously a couple of friends were doing well. So I was like, all right, cool. So bought that place. Or got that place, yeah.
You've obviously got a healthy respect for that industry now. I mean, when you came in, you were looking at the cameras and what does that do? And what, so your love was born from there.
From there, yeah. So I didn't know anything. So then Jammer, who was a friend at the time, I was just like, look, teach me everything. You know. So he was like, all right, just make sure there's weed to smoke and I'll teach you.
Is that how you are naturally? You see something and you want to know everything about it?
Yeah.
Did you do the same thing when you were on road and you just wanted to know everything?
Kind of, because you're used to being in the deep end anyway.
Because you're quite analytical. To remember all the number plates,
detail,
and all these things happening, people's names. That's a natural trait within you. But that didn't lead you to leaving school with GCSEs, but it's allowed you to be a very successful businessman. Yeah,
so I didn't leave school with GCSEs. Unfortunately, in our school, I burgled the IT room.
Wait. How do you unfortunately burgle that type? Bro, stop trying to dress this up. Unfortunately, go on.
So basically.
When does shit get better? Please.
I keep trying to drag you out.
So that's why I've got no GCSEs. So I was actually in all the top classes. So I wasn't like...
Oh, so you were very academic.
Because you hear no GCSEs, you think drop out.
Did everyone around you know you were academic?
I really want to know this thing, what he did with the IT room.
Kind of, yeah. So obviously me and the guys from the estate, whatever, snuck the keys out of the room, went, got the keys cut, came back, I think it was like a play or something.
It was just bad breed you.
Yeah, so, but for me, it was money. It wasn't it wasn't personal.
It was a means to an end.
It was a means to an end, yeah.
So then Jammer taught you everything you knew about the music studio. And then how did it go from music? Because you could have, lots of people, they would just stay in music.
Yeah.
It's still,
because
it's similar.
It's a transition that happens a lot in
it's similar because it's
gangs
and glamorous, girls, money, fancy.
It's a big crossover.
It came out of thing and made a lot of money.
So why didn't you stay in music and then you went to like...
Music was like, so in our studio, we had an Apple Mac G4. So at the time, nobody had an Apple computer. There wasn't an Apple shop in London. So I think what was happening is as I was doing recording, I was getting like a system overload. So I realized, okay, I need RAM memory. So, or I'm thinking I need RAM. I'm reading a book, you need RAM memory. But there's no internet these times. It's
search
textful.
for how you do that.
So you search. So anyway, I have to read this book. This book says this is how you upgrade the RAM. So go to this guy. He owned a company called Albion Computers. He still exists now. So he would be like one old white guy off of like Oxford Street. He would sit in this office. There was no computers in there. There was just a catalogue because everything was coming from America.
Yeah.
But the moment you want to talk to him, he wants £80. So he's like £80 for an appointment. And then he's like, all right, then I order you the RAM memory. So then he's ordered me the RAM memory, which I kind of knew I needed anyway, but I didn't to pay him £80 to talk to him. Then I sort of realised...
You're mugging me off.
Yeah, exactly. So then I thought, once the RAM memory was changed, done it myself, I was like, that was easy. And then the power supply blew, same thing, done it myself. And then it kind of got to a situation where I'd go to other people's studios because I was in that and they'd be having the same problems. So then they'll be like, oh, my computer's doing this. And then I'll be like,
you saw a little niche for yourself.
Did they ever ask you, what's your qualifications for you to fix my computer?
Loads of people asked.
And what did you say?
So at the time, I never had any qualifications. So, there was a guy, I can't remember, I think his name is Dave East or Dave West or something. He designed the Lucozade bottle for the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Black guy.
Yeah.
So I met him and then he was like, oh, you know so much and whatnot. My wife is the head of a school and they're having some IT issues. Can you go down there? It's a school called Beaverwood School in Bromley.
I know
yeah.
So connections.
Yeah. So I went down to this school and she was like, oh, our maintenance guy, IT maintenance guy, he's had an issue here for 2 weeks, ain't been able to solve it. So I've walked into a room and there was like 35 computers there. And then she was like, "Oh, can you do it? Because the students rarely need to use this for their exams and whatnot, because they were studying music. They needed to use a program called Sibelius. So obviously I was more than familiar with it. So then I was like, yeah, I can do it. And she was like, how long will it take? It was about 2 hours.
And still, she wasn't asking.
And she didn't believe you, innit?
Yeah, she didn't believe me.
She wasn't asking for your credentials.
Not at the time, because her husband.
You've
been introduced.
Because her husband
Yeah.
had introduced me to her. So she was like, look, just do this and whatnot. And then once they saw that, like, this guy had been taking 2 weeks, and that's the guy that's been contracted with them, and I've done 2 hours.
At this point, had you left the other lifestyle behind?
Yeah, so the other lifestyle's like way, it's like way behind. So, but then once I saw the amount of money that, you know, these people were willing to pay, so I think that school, they paid like £150 for a call-out fee, and then it was like $120 an hour, and then it was like 2 clicks of a button.
3 hours.
Yeah, I could have took 3. I could have sat there all day. They already waited 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes.
So,
but interestingly, you were honest with the school.
Yeah. I was honest as well.
Well, where'd you get those morals from? Because you clearly had minimal morals back then.
So yeah, so I had.
But it was a need thing.
Yeah, exactly.
He said back then. Hang on. He said back then, I robbed the IT room in school.
Yeah, I was 15.
For need.
I was 15.
But I needed money.
But it was about money.
Yeah, but then
you didn't hate the school.
Okay, so hang on. £120 an hour. You could have lied and said a day.
Yeah.
Were you like rolling in cash where you didn't have
by
to lie?
By that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had money by this time.
I did have money, but I had more possessions
Okay.
than money, because I always knew that when houses would get raided, the police would take money.
Yeah.
So rather than have money, I'd have 7 cars.
Yeah.
I'd have various amounts of.
That's what I'm saying, because you had 20 grand to buy a studio.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To get them out of
But then it's interesting, because from when you did all road and all the rest of it, and now you're being honest to the teacher, only tutor, where do you get your morals from? And it's a question I always have, because obviously you saw with your mum being alcoholic, your dad doing whatever he was doing in and out of prison. And really and truly, can you really have morals or true friends? Because you said one of your friends or cousins tied up your mum and your brother.
My cousin.
Exactly. So where do you then say what's right and what's wrong if people that are the closest to you are tying up your own family?
It comes through experience. So like, the thing is with drugs, loads of people take it. So you start selling to people that are a bit more classy. So I got one guy, he's the owner of a jewelry store. He's one of my customers, and he's like, wear this for the day, wear that for the day. There's a couple of rings.
And they trusted you.
Yeah, and he trusted me.
And you realised if you are honest with people or trust people, then they will return that.
Yeah, so then it's like, do you have to do it? So a lot of the time when you analyse somebody else's story, or you kind of see where other people go wrong, or where I was noticing that people were sort of tripping up, it would be like there was too much greed.
Yeah.
You didn't have to go there.
Yeah.
Like you
don't know
had
when
enough.
to stop.
Yeah. So and that was it. You didn't know when to stop.
What you haven't done? What's interesting to me? You've told this story, and you said you've talked about the trappings of that lifestyle, which were good on the whole. The risks of it were damaging, and the risk of your mum or you getting involved in and getting hurt. But you've not glamorized it. You're not telling me that, or it doesn't sound to me like you're proud of that, and you're going, actually, it made you who you are, evidently.
It's matter of fact, isn't it?
But it's more a statement of this is what I did, rather than it was a great time in my life.
Nah, it wasn't a great time. You think it's a great time at the time because you don't know anything else.
It's now a great time.
Now is another transitioning period.
Okay, what does that mean?
So it basically means that, like, like when you're young, you want the Avrex and you want the chains and whatnot, and then you hit a ceiling. You open a company, you're used to making 6 figures a year, and then you hit a ceiling. So every time you sort of hit a ceiling, you kind of, there's only one way back. You come down,
you don't go there,
and then you sort of say to yourself, what changes need to be made in order for me to break through this ceiling and get into that 7-figure sort of bracket.
So you've reinvented yourself during.
So that's what I'm basically doing now.
Okay.
So it feels like that period of time when I had to reinvent myself, open a company, didn't realize how many opportunities were going to come with it, but loads did. Met loads of great people. And as you start meeting nice people, and then they start inviting you into their homes are really big, and all of this.
So that means is there an issue? Because what we've found with when we speak to a lot of people, there is an issue with being content, because you've gone from no Jaffa cakes in your cupboard, you've gone from mum being alcoholic, all the rest of it, being robbed, girlfriend being kidnapped, etc. Then working for a school that paid you £120 an hour for your IT skills, which you had no qualifications for.
I had no qualifications.
So you was already punching.
Yeah, but then with that, with that, the no qualifications. So the lady, his wife, made it an issue that I had no qualifications.
Oh, wow.
So after you'd fixed it, now it's a problem.
Yeah. So once it was like, because her husband, Dave, was like, give him the contract.
Yeah.
Get rid of the other maintenance guy and give it to him.
Because they're obviously robbing you, and this guy's doing 2 hours.
So
and being honest.
So she was like, I'd love to give you the contract, but where did you study? What background and what qualifications? What's your CV?
Yeah.
I had nothing at the time. So I then went to university. So then I applied to go to university as a mature student because of that situation.
That's brilliant.
Love that.
Yeah. And then I finished with a first class honours in computing.
That is genius, you know.
So it was actually her setting you back, saying you're good enough to fix for a quick one, but for you to get a contract, you need to go to uni. Because there's so much, I feel like, especially within our community, there's so much negativity around going to uni. Like, you don't need to go uni.
That's a big decision. It's no small.
It's like you can build a business. You don't have to go to uni.
But if you're from African or some certain Caribbean family, that's the only way you're told to go.
Yeah, but now it's like, our university is 30 grand debt and it's useless, really. That's another conversation. So it's interesting to hear that you've gone from the roads to music industry to doing IT with no qualifications and realising actually uni is going to be good for me.
Do you know what I hear? What I hear though is that everything you do, you excel at. So whether it is something on the road, because to get respect of people from those different that's no joke, because if your cousin's tying up your mum and you're still okay, that's a big thing, right? Then you move from there, you go into music, you just look at a studio, and then you got big artists like More Fire and everyone coming to do stuff with you. You go into IT after fixing a problem that you had yourself, and then extrapolating that to others. That's, you like excellence, bruv. You are.
I think it's more the hours that you're willing to put into something.
Okay.
So, and this is where it's another transferable skill. A lot of these young guys, they don't realize that when you're on an estate, you might be standing in a particular area for 18 hours a day. So that was my norm. So for me to be awake for 18 hours and work for 18 hours, that's normal. I've been doing that since I was 12.
Are you an advocate of this early start, you know, getting up at silly o'clock in the morning and getting stuck into it all day?
Whatever time I wake up,
it takes.
But you said you had transferable skills, but were you able to then act in a corporate sense? Because IT is very corporate when you have to work with certain people. So dealing with things such as because you've gone from that to then having 5 shops, how did you dealing with the HMRC, legitimizing your business, you know, whether it be...
You've got 5 shops now?
Yeah, I've scaled it down, so I've got 4 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so how did you...
4 shops is like, some people ain't got 1, bruv. You know what I mean?
So how did you manage to, because a lot of people say it's still a skill or transferable skills to be on the road, but you don't have to pay tax. You don't have to do various things, banking, all of those things, and managing your money and knowing what the tax bill will be at the end of the year. None of that happened. So how did you learn that?
It's more about like wanting something. So at first, you know, when the money was coming in, I didn't understand the value of that. And then, you know, you start looking at a property. And then somebody says to you, you need an SA 302. And you're like, what is that?
What is that? Yeah.
And then somebody says it's like 3 years worth of company accounts. So then you start realizing that,
I've got to put a process in.
Yeah. So it was always like, okay, if you give me something to do and and this is why the police question, I can't agree with it. Okay, because if you gave me a job as a policeman, I'm very specific. So if you say to me, go there, locker, 3rd locker, bottom right, blah, 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 I'm going to do every single detail.
Meticulous,
to what instruction it is that I've been given.
No matter what the door, who the person.
And that's the skill, isn't it? That's the skill about being able to know what needs to be done, but execution is the key. Because lots of people will read the books and say, or read someone's story, but you will go, Jabba, teach me everything. And it's like, and then you apply it and you get the results.
And that taught him 6 months.
Look at that.
So he literally sat there with me for 6 months.
Wow.
So you know, it wasn't, but then because I want something, when you're used to having nothing, it's like, whatever it takes to get it, you're gonna get it. You know, so
depends how badly you want it.
Because but then you remember what it feels like being poor
and not to have stuff
and not to have it.
And you don't want to go back there.
You know, you've been successful. However, you know, you might look at that as moderate success, and you're looking to break the glass ceiling and move to the next level. But for you, what comes next? You know, how do you motivate yourself to continue with what you're doing?
It's all about who you talk to. It's all about who you talk to, who you know. That's why now, when I'm saying I'm in a transition, it's more about eliminating the people that have not grown over the past 5 years, you know, and finding new people to fill those spaces.
Do you think that's quite hard for people to, because we say no, a lot of, again, our culture, no new friends, stick to what you know.
It's only people like Drake say that. I'll take new friends all day long. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very hard, but then at the same time, with me, I'm very testing as well. So I would put people through tests to see, you know, and then it's sort of like, not to glamorize it, but I might give you the rope. So you've been around for a while, you know, you've been here for a while, you said you want to do this, you said you want to do that. Here you go, you want 10 grand or you want whatever to do what you want to do, here it is. But I'm giving you the rope.
So you open that up.
Yeah, so it's in a sense of either you do it,
or you
and you finish it, and you foul. And if you foul, that's the exit.
And to conclude, as it were, what would you say are 2 things that you may have regretted or that's affected you mentally, and 2 things that you're really happy with, despite everything?
2 things that I would say has affected me mentally: the death of my best friend. So he was stabbed 31 times. And I was 23 at the time, and I saw his body on my birthday, on my 23rd birthday. And our mums were pregnant together. Wow. So his middle name is actually Daryl. So his name was Leon Daryl Johnson. So we done everything together. And when it came down to, he's the person who actually gave me the name Minko.
Oh, okay.
That's why my friends call me Minko, because of him. So, but he was the only person that every time there was these tests, he would pass them. So he was the only person that was willing to do the 18-hour days as well. Necessary. He was willing to do every single thing. So because I know what his potential was, and he was like just as good as I was at everything that I'm doing now. So
that's why you named your company and your stores after him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically. So when with him, that affected me big time. Like that was like, from when that happened, sort of went into depression. And even now, it's sort of like you remember that person at 23.
Yeah.
They never move
on.
They
don't move on. But then with me, I have a very good intuitive sort of mind, in a sense where I can see where somebody's going.
Okay, so that was basically a gift and a curse.
Yeah. That was it was more of a curse than anything. So and the second thing that I would more than likely say, probably my nan. Yeah. So with her and her situation, I've never seen her you know, her normal.
Her true self.
Yeah. So I don't know what she's like. I don't know.
Just the stories.
Yeah. I'm only told stories. Yeah. The 2 things that I would say helped me a lot was my dad's mum.
Yes.
Okay. So the positives.
Going away for the weekends.
Yeah. Going away for the weekends, being with her, not being able to tell her what I was doing, because she would always make me aspire to more.
Yes.
So
she pedestal the potential.
Yeah. So she would always be like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. And she was like very routine. So 6 a.m. you're awake. So in her house in Jamaica, she actually had servant or maid in her house in Jamaica.
And that was good for you.
No, but the maid wasn't allowed.
No, I mean her telling
the
you
routine.
to...
Yeah, the routine. So,
Structure.
So 6 a.m. you're awake.
Yeah.
Do that. do that, do this, do that, do that. She'll have something for you to do until it's bedtime. And then even when it's bedtime, she's like, go to bed. So, you know, she was very strict.
That really impacted you. You can see
Yeah.
that. You can see that because it's also, it's that rope thing as well. Your nan had aspirations for you. And then every time you met that, there was positive rewards off the back of it, and you now implement that. It's very deep. It's very deep.
So she's probably one, and another thing is probably traveling. So even though
that's been a positive influence.
Yeah. So
getting out of the postcodes, isn't it?
Getting out of the postcodes,
seeing the rest of the world.
And seeing the rest of the world. There was some time I spent in so I got sent to Jamaica as a kid because I was so bad as well, whatever. And then in Jamaica I got sent back to the UK. But then I think that's
the first time I heard that one, you know what I mean? Because you never come back. Once you're there, you never come back.
Yeah, I got sent back. So it was sort of like, but then I think just before my friend's death, when I was 23, 2 weeks before his death, I went to Egypt. And I sort of had a tour of Egypt with a guy. And this guy is like, he was just smiling all the time. Like that through the whole 2 weeks, he was smiling. And then one day he's taken us to get something to eat. But this was maybe like 2.5 weeks into the holiday. We're visiting all these different cities. So then everybody's eating. And then I've realized that every day that we go to eat, he doesn't eat. So then I've said to him, like, do you want something to eat? But he always had a smile on his face. Like the moment you go to speak to him, he had a smile. Like, I was like, do you want something to eat? He said, no, I can't. So I was like, why? So he was like, basically, I won't eat meat without my wife and kids.
Wow.
So then I was like, okay, so what do you eat? He says, I eat rice and water. They eat rice and water. And at the end of every month, I travel back to their house and then we'll have
take the money
a meat dish.
Save,
So then, and he was just smiling the whole time. And he had so much respect and so much manners. And I had quite a lot, but that had accumulated in the wrong way. And then I was just like, how are you so happy? And he was like, I'm alive, you know, like.
And that impacted you.
Yeah. That was like to see it because, and then when I was looking at everybody else, nobody else was aware that this guy, every single day, he's watching you eat 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And he was still happy. And then I sort of realized that a lot of the stuff that I'm actually doing is unnecessary.
Yeah.
So when I actually came back to England after that trip, I actually told one of my friends, the same friend that passed away, I basically said to him, look, like, it's either music or drugs. I said, if we don't pick one, then you're always gonna have something from that world ruin
something you're trying to build.
Yeah, something else. So yeah, those 2 moments for me were definitely the most.
So where can we see your?
Yeah, I need a Mac.
business?
How
can we
Where
get
can we see your business? If we need our Macs fixing, where
You're
can we
joking.
go?
I desperately need a Mac.
Yeah. I mean, it's simple. You can order online.
Yeah.
So you can just go onto our website www.minkosmacs, or you can visit one of our stores.
Where are they located?
So we have one in Camden, which is not too far from here.
Yep.
That one's super busy. The one in Wimbledon is turning into another business, and we have another one in Lewisham, which is doing extremely well as well. You're on Lee High.
Listen, I want a discount. I'm coming to you.
I'm going to say mates rates.
Yeah.
I'll be in.
Yeah.
Wicked. Love that. Thank you for being so honest.
Yeah.
Because actually, lots of people try to hide lots of the stuff that you talked about. Mainly, forget the drug stuff. It's part of it, but the family stuff. We really appreciate you sharing that, because I think there'll be people watching who are actually living that life.
Yeah,
and seeing some of the kids that we have at some of our schools and others, and then to see you in terms of what you've done with that as an experience to where you are
Or even
now.
older people still on the road thinking,
Trust
how
me.
can I transition?
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
But a word for those people that are doing it. One, sometimes what you need to do is put an hourly rate to what you're actually doing. 2, you need to look at the impact that you're actually causing other people. 3, you need to look at the risks and the dangers and the consequences. And, you know, if you do go to prison and get jail time, then what have you made and how
all
does
for
that
nothing.
equate to
Exactly,
the
because the hourly rate after putting in how many hours a
18
day,
hours a
you
day,
haven't actually made that much.
time? Yeah. So and in business, in my first year of business, I made more money in my first year than I did selling drugs over 10 years.
Love that.
So I wouldn't count, I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah.
Credit to you.
Love it.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you,
We
Daryl.
really
Thank you
enjoyed the
for coming.
conversation.
Yeah,
Wicked,
Thank you.
wicked chat.
Yeah,
Thank you
very
brother.
much.
Thanks.